Welcome to the Athlon Sports NFL preview. We got a lot to talk about today, so let's just get into it. We got joining us today our NFL analyst, Doug Farrar, our NFL draft and just football guy in general, Luke Easterling, and we got Steve Driscoll, video editor, video guy supreme.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to kick it off today with looking at players who move teams. So which player on a new team do you think will have the biggest impact on their team this season? Luke, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I'm going to go Geno Smith on this one. This is a guy who is, I think, the most underrated quarterback in the entire NFL, at least last year, maybe the last 2 or 3 years. What he was able to do in Seattle, yeah, he had weapons, but that offensive line was just absolutely atrocious for so much of that time, and he was still able to make a lot of chicken salad out of you-know-what. So he's such a veteran stabilizing presence. If you look at what they've had in Vegas and what they've added, I just feel like he's the perfect guy for this opportunity, for this time, for this franchise. Pete Carroll taking over, definitely bringing in like a stabilizing force to the coaching staff and to the organization as a whole. And then Geno Smith does the same thing for this offense in this locker room. I think, you've got Brock Bowers, you got Jacoby Myers, you add Ashton Jeanty as a top 10 pick. So the playmakers are there. They just need somebody to distribute the football. And I think his arm talent doesn't get enough credit. I think he's got more arm strength than people give him credit for. But also it's just his ability to mitigate weaknesses and to mitigate deficiencies around him with accuracy, decision-making, intelligence, just being able to stay cool and calm when everything is chaotic around him. And I just think you're going to get a consistency on a week-to-week basis that team, it's going to raise their floor so much more than they've had over the last few years with the quarterback carousel that they've had in Vegas. And again, I think Pete Carroll makes a big difference for the organization as a whole in terms of raising their floor of what their expectations can be on a week-to-week basis. And a lot of it is going to have to do with the fact that I think they're finally going to get consistent, high-level quarterback play from a guy who's been doing it longer than he's been getting credit for.
Well, you look at the alignments, Luke. I mean, when Geno was in Seattle and they ran a lot of 12 personnel with 2 tight ends, his performance with 12 personnel was absolutely insane. And now you have Brock Bowers, who with Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell as his primary quarterbacks, did the triple crown in history for rookie tight ends. Most receptions, most yards, well, not most touchdowns, only 5, because those were his quarterbacks. Geno's one of the 2 or 3 best deep ball throwers in the NFL. I'll brook no argument. And getting to know him in the Seattle locker room, I mean, all the stuff he went through with the Jets and the Giants and all that. And even, I mean, he was released like 3 times by the Seahawks. That was no sure thing. So he's been through all the battles. He's seen all the elephants. He comes in and he can take Pete Carroll's leadership right onto the field. I think it makes them, I think that gives them 3 to 4 wins just with his presence alone.
Yeah, I wonder who will see the greatest impact. Obviously, Bowers will be greatly impacted by bringing Geno Smith in, but a guy like Jacoby Myers too. A slot guy like him, having an actual quarterback to be able to throw to him, I think is going to make a huge difference for a guy like Myers and that whole offense in general. I think it's a great move.
They had 2 terribly inspiring offensive coordinators, Luke Getsy and Scott Turner.
Well, Scott. Who did that?
Getting back to Geno's deep ball acumen, I think the guy that we need to watch, Luke, I'm talking about here, is Dante Thornton, the rookie receiver from Tennessee. This guy is an Al Davis special. Big, fast, can just roam downfield and make these contested catch balls, just Godzilla cornerbacks downfield. I think Dante Thornton Jr., in pretty short order, could be Geno Smith's new best buddy. And then you have, Myers and certainly, and then Michael Myers, the other tight end, and certainly Bowers. You have a receiving core that's pretty good. Chip Kelly is known as a spread guy. Well, his Oregon teams always went heavy run game. I mean, he seemed to know what to do last year with the run game with a certain college football team. So, I think Geno Smith, his addition, glues everything together in all these other things they've been doing, and he's the perfect guy for that.
Interesting. You like a guy like Dante Thornton Jr. over a guy like Jack Beck, another rookie receiver they drafted, who's been a lot of buzz about him in the
I'm not minimizing Beck. I just think as far as the deep ball stuff, Thornton was, and Beck is also a good deep ball receiver, but Thornton is just built for that.
Well, and that speaks to what I think is going to be a very complete offense that they just haven't had in a while, because you add Jeanty to stabilize the ground game. The offensive line is decent. It's definitely better than what he had to work with in Seattle. And this receiver conversation, all these times, we've talked about it before, about how everybody wants their receiver room to be like a basketball team where you don't have 5 or 6 guys that can do the same exact thing. You have guys that have very specific roles and very specific tools that they bring to the table. And I think when you have Myers and Bowers, and again, the thing that Jack Beck and Thornton bring to the table, there's something they can do that everybody else can't do or doesn't do as well as they do. And I think that Geno is the type of quarterback that knows what his guys are going to be good at, and he'll be able to take full advantage of that while having a sound ground game now with Genty. That it's just, again, it's something. It's a floor that the Raiders fans have just not seen from their offense for a while. And I think it's, I hate using the phrase like there's an adult in the room, but in terms of the football, there is an elevation to where, okay, we're not messing around with, again, a bunch of combined backup quarterbacks. We've got a guy who's a above average starter in the league, and that's just something they haven't had to work with.
And he's got 2 or 3 more good years. I mean, honestly, I thought the Seahawks and moving on from Smith and going with Sam Darnold, I could be proven wrong. I thought they made a mistake. I think Geno.
I agree, 100%. He's younger, and that's it. He's not better at anything than Geno Smith when it comes to playing football.
He's younger and cheap.
Yeah, it's also weird they add Cooper Kupp to age up that offense.
After trading away DK Metcalf and letting go of Tyler Lockett.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Cooper Kupp is Tyler Lockett. He's not DK Metcalf. I just want to let you guys know.
It's all going to work out just fine.
All right, Doug, who do you have as the biggest impact player on a new team?
Josh Simmons, left tackle for the Chiefs. Had he not suffered a torn patellar tendon in his about midway through his last season at Ohio State last year, Simmons would have been my OT1 by a crushing margin because he just does everything so well. Luke, I would imagine he was right up there on your board too.
Yep.
And now he's fully healthy, and you see the reps. It's like this guy, I mean, he's so athletic. He can get to the second level and hit his targets. He's great with the kick step, all the technique, and he's got a nasty to him that really the Chiefs like because they have Trey Smith at right guard, and he's certainly that guy, the enforcer on that line. So now you have Simmons at left tackle, which was obviously the cue. They had to move Joe Thuney over to left tackle in the playoffs, and we saw what that did to them in the Super Bowl. You've got a guy who can solidify there. Sumatea at left guard could be okay. It's not a liability per se. Creed Humphrey, top 3 center. Trey Smith, top 3 guard. You got Jawan Taylor in his penalty festival and all his blown blocks over there, but,
Just line up on the line of scrimmage, Jawan. Just line up on the line of scrimmage, buddy.
Well, he can't do that, but if Simmons plays in the NFL the way he played in college, I mean, this 32nd overall pick, that's a major, major value add for the Chiefs. The Chiefs had no deep passing game last year, and that wasn't all on the protection. Mahomes was not throwing accurately deep last year, and that's something we don't really talk about, even when he wasn't pressured. But certainly, it gets to the point after 2 or 3 years of horrible offensive line play. And this is, by the way, is the credit to Geno Smith, who never really broke down with 2 or 3 years of horrible offensive line play in Seattle. I think with Simmons as that blindside left tackle that Mahomes can trust, that's going to put a lot of shots in the arm in Kansas City's offense, and Kansas City's offense needs it.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy, like you said, going into that draft, even with the injury, I mean, I remember having him in mock drafts in the top 10 to teams like the Chicago Bears, and I was pretty comfortable with that. He ended up barely falling outside of my first round grades just because of the injury, and I still had the Chiefs trading up to get him at 24 in my final mock draft that morning of the draft. So the need and the fit was always perfect. I just never thought he'd get there. I never thought he'd fall that far because the position is too important. And if you go back to that tape, like you said, before he got hurt, that was top 10 tape. I mean, that was dominant left tackle. There's no physical trait that's missing in terms of arm length or athleticism or power or anything. And so the position is too important. The need was so big. I mean, there's just, if you look around the league, I don't know, outside of teams that desperately needed quarterbacks, I don't know that there was a position of need that was greater in the NFL that could make a more immediate impact for a team that obviously expects to be in the conversation to win the Super Bowl again, than getting Patrick Mahomes, a franchise left tackle, and to be able to go out and do it, because it's just not that easy. And so I think, again, without the injury, Simmons is probably a top 10 pick. To get him where they did without having to move up at all, I thought was an incredible move by Brett Veach and that front office. Their patience paid off. They've been looking for that guy since they got blown out by the Bucs in the Super Bowl. It's been a constant problem, and for it to be a problem to that degree for that long, that's kind of confusing to me. But I think they've finally found the guy. If he can stay healthy, this is the guy they've been waiting for since that game.
you have to go back to like Eric Fisher's development. It's hard to find a left tackle that hits. And the other thing about Simmons is, and this is another reason that's remarkable, he went all the way to 32. This was the class, right, of yes, he could be a tackle, but he's probably a guard for, I mean, even really high drafted guys like Will Campbell of the Patriots. We still wonder this about. You put on Simmons tape, you don't even think about it. He's a tackle. He's a left tackle. He's an NFL left tackle. He's a potential Pro Bowl NFL left tackle right now. And you got him with the 32nd overall pick. Some teams know how to do this.
Steve, who do you have as your most impactful new player?
I feel like this one's going to get a little bit of hate, but I'm going with Aaron Rodgers to the Steelers. Like, I know he's old, but I don't think he was nearly as bad as a lot of people think he was last year. I think it was a little bit of the media stigma, how he's kind of, he's kind of an a-hole a little bit. So I think people kind of underrated him a bit last year. Him and Garrett Wilson actually did do pretty decent last year. I think he's underrated. I think Aaron Rodgers is a way better leader than Russell Wilson, and I think the Steelers are going to greatly benefit from adding him to the team.
I won't argue that it might be partly the perception of him in like as a person or a teammate or whatever you've had over the last few years, but I just think as a player, I don't know that he elevates that team. I just don't. I think there are issues that are still there. I think he's a average quarterback at best at this point in his career. And again, this speaks to how unfair it was for Tom Brady to be so damn good in his 40s that we look at a guy like Aaron Rodgers, who is probably the closest comp, right? I mean, this is a guy who's in his 40s, but is a first ballot Hall of Famer who's been an elite quarterback for most of his career and maybe the most talented thrower of the football I've ever seen in terms of, I mean, I can't take that away from him. In his prime, I think he was the best at that. And even still, his ball placement and things he can do, I respect that. His ceiling and the way he is able to play at his best at his age compared to what Brady was doing in Tampa Bay in his 40s it's just night and day. So I think there is still this bit of like, people expect him to be as good as Brady was able to be in his 40s, and I just don't think that's the case. I think he can be okay. I just don't know if it's enough to get, again, a mediocre football team that's been mediocre for a while. I think he's a mediocre quarterback, so I don't think at this point in his career he moves the needle for them very much.
Thing is, I don't expect him to be Tom Brady in Tampa Bay. Like, that was next level. Even when the Bucs didn't win the Super Bowl and they lost to the Rams in the playoffs.
That team was better, Steve. That team was better than the one that won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, they were very legit. I'm not expecting Rodgers to be that. I just think Russell Wilson is so uninspiring. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to get these guys to rally around him. I think he'll be pleasantly surprised. Let me say that.
Brady threw more touchdown passes in his 40s than he did in his 20s.
That's still
that record will never be broken.
That's insane.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
One of the reasons the Brady thing worked in Tampa, and Luke, you remember this because you were down there. Halfway through that first season, they got blown out by the Saints, and then there was the bye, and they all got together and said, "Okay, here's the stuff Arians likes, and here's the stuff Tom likes," and it really doesn't always converge. They weren't automatic schematic matchups, and Arians, like all smart coaches, said, "Okay, Tom, what do you want to do? Because you're Tom frickin' Brady." When you look at this fit, I mean, you look at that Jets passing game last season, it was very static. No motion, no real route concepts. Everything was ISO. But where did that come from? It didn't come from Nate Hackett. It came from the quarterback. That's what he wants. Arthur Smith in Pittsburgh, he wants to run under center. It's play action. It's boot action. It's a lot of motion. It's a lot of different sort of, sub route concepts. I mean, we make fun of Arthur Smith because of, the 3 tight end sets and, not getting the best guys the ball back in Atlanta, but he's got a very specific idea of what he wants to do offensively. And that's transferred throughout his career. That doesn't really fit with what Rodgers wants to do. So it's not so much Aaron Rodgers as an a-hole. Okay, fine. To whatever extent that does or does not matter on the field, I wonder about the fit. And I would say that in his early 40s, Rodgers would have to become an entirely different quarterback to succeed in this offense. And that's where the personality stuff comes in. Getting Aaron Rodgers to change that much for such an enlightened guy, I can't see it happening. So I think he has the talent to make it better. This is a team that from 21 through 23 had winning records every year with negative point differential. So they're good enough everywhere else. That's insane. That's another record they're playing.
You guess that point differential up 1 point? Or team?
Well, it'll be a few. I mean, I'm interested to see how it all merges because, and it's one reason I think Garrett Wilson was such an underrated player last year because there was never a target where he was in motion. There was never a target where he was given the advantage of a route concept at all. And yeah, Justin Fields is his quarterback, but it's still going to be better just because you've got a new staff who understands, hey, let's get our really good receiver in, positions to be successful. What a concept. As opposed to bending to your quarterback because he doesn't like this or that.